שירו לאדוני, שיר חדש, שירו לאדוני, כל הארץ, שירו לאדוני, ברכו שמו, בסחו מיום ליום ישועתו. שירו לאדוני שיר חדש, שירו לאדוני כל הארץ, שירו לאדוני ברכו שמו, בסחו מיום ליום ישועתו. ספרו בגויים כבודו, לכל העמים נפלאותיו, כי גדול אדוני ומהולל מאוד, נורא הוא על כל אלוהים. שירו לאדוני שיר חדש, שירו לאדוני כל הארץ, שירו לאדוני ברכו שמו, בסחו מיום ליום ישועתו. ספרו בגויים כבודו, לכל העמים נפלאותיו, כי גדול אדוני ומהולל מאוד, נורא הוא על כל אלוהים. שירו לאדוני שיר חדש, שירו לאדוני כל הארץ, שירו לאדוני ברכו שמו, בסחו מיום ליום ישועתו. ספרו בגויים כבודו, לכל העמים נפלאותיו, כי גדול אדוני ומהולל מאוד, נורא הוא על כל אלוהים. שיר לאדוני, שיר לאדוני, שיר לאדוני. ספרו בגויים כבודו, לכל העמים נפלאותיו, כי גדול אדוני ומהולל מאוד, נורא הוא על כל אלוהים. שירו לאדוני שיר חדש, שירו לאדוני כל הארץ, שירו לאדוני ברכו שמו, בסחו מיום ליום ישועתו.
Esainai el hecharim, me'ayin yavo ezri. Esainai el hecharim, me'ayin yavo ezri. Ezri, me'im Adonai, Ose shamayim va'aretz, Ezri me'im Adonai. Ose shamayim va'aretz, Esainai el harim, me'ayin yavo Ezri. Esainai el hearim, me'ayin yavo Ezri.
Shabbat Shalom. So glad to be able to celebrate Shabbat with all of you this morning. We begin on page 66 with an inspiration for prayer. Each of us enters this sanctuary with a different need. Some hearts are full of peace and gratitude, overflowing with love and joy. They are eager to confront the day to make the world a better place. They are recovering from illness or have escaped misfortune. We rejoice with them. Some hearts ache with sorrow. Disappointments weigh heavily on them. Families have been broken. Loved ones lie in a bed of pain. Death has taken a cherished loved one. May our presence and caring bring them comfort. Some hearts are embittered. Ideals are betrayed and mocked. Answers sought in vain. Life has lost its meaning and value. May the knowledge that we too are searching restore our hope and renew our faith. Whatever it is that brings you here this morning, whether you're here in the Wolf Sanctuary or joining us on live stream, we welcome you, your spirit, your presence, as we enter into our worship space together. On page 76, we offer prayers, for the gift of our bodies, that we woke up this morning and we're able to be here. And then Jack, our guest cantorial soloist, will lead us in Elohai Neshama, our prayer that gives thanks for the gift of our souls. So join with me on page 76. Praise to you, Adonai our God, sovereign of the universe, who formed the human body with skill, creating the body's many pathways and openings. It is well known that before your throne of glory, that if one of them be wrongly opened or closed, it would be impossible to endure and stand before you. Blessed are you, Adonai, who heals all flesh, working wondrously. Baruch atah Adonai, rofei kol basar umafli la'asot. Page 78.
Elohai, Elohai, Nishamra, Shenatata bi tehorahi. Elohai, Elohai, Nishamra, Shenatata bi tehorahi. Ata berata, ata yitzata, ata nefachta bi, ve'ata mishamera, mishamra birkibi. Elohai, Elohai, Nishamra, Shenatata bi tehorahi.
Elu Devarim She'ein Lahem Shior. On page 88, we offer this teaching from Talmud that reminds us of our obligations to each other, to our friends and family, as well as the strangers in our midst, being there for each other in high moments and low moments, strengthening our connection to each other. Join with me. These are things that are limitless, of which a person enjoys the fruit of the world, while the principle remains in the world to come. They are honorings one father and mother, engaging in deeds of compassion, arriving early for study morning and evening, dealing graciously with guests, visiting the sick, providing for the wedding couple, accompanying the dead for burial, being devoted in prayer, and making peace among people. But the study of Torah encompasses them all. On page 106, we rise now for the Chatzi Kaddish as we remain standing through the Shema.
Yitgadal v'yitgadash Shemei Rabba, Amen. V'yalmad yivrach chirutei v'yamlich malchutei, b'chayechon u'vyomechon, u'chayei dechol Beit Yisrael. Bagala, bagala, uvizman koriv, v'yemeru, Amen. Yehi Shmei Rabba mevorach, le'alam u'almei omaya, yitbarach, yitbarach v'yishtabach, v'yitpa'ar v'yitromam v'yitnaseh, v'yitadar v'yitaleh, v'yitalal shmei dekudisha brechu le'ela. In kolber patsa v'shirata, tushbechata v'nechemata, damiran v'alma, v'yemeru, Amen. Baruchu et Adonai hamevorach. Baruch Adonai hamevorach leolam vahed.
Page 110. Baruch ata Adonai, Eloheinu melech haolam, yotzer or uvarei choshech, oseh shalom uvarei et hakol, hameir la'aretz v'ladarim aleha berachamim, uvtuvo mechadesh bechol yom tamid ma'aseh v'reshit. Ma rabu ma'asecha Adonai, kulam bechokma asita, mal'ah ha'eretz kinyanecha, titbarach Adonai Eloheinu, al shevach ma'aseh yadecha, ve'al me'orei or she'asita yifa'arucha selah. Or chadash al tzion ta'ir, v'nizkeh hulanu mehera le'oro, Baruch ata Adonai, yotzer ha'me'orot. On page 112, we share in the English together. How deeply you have loved us, Adonai our God, gracing us with surpassing compassion, on account of our forebears whose trust led you to teach them the laws of life. Be gracious to us, teaching us as well. O merciful one, have mercy on us by making us able to understand and discern, to heed, learn, and teach, and lovingly to observe, perform, and fulfill all that is in your Torah. Enlighten our eyes with your Torah, focus our minds on your mitzvot, unite our hearts in love and reverence for your name. Then we will never feel shame, never deserve rebuke, and never stumble. Having trusted in your great and awesome holiness, we shall celebrate your salvation with joy. Gather us in peace from the four corners of the earth, and lead us upright to our land. For you, O God, work wonders. You chose us. Truly, you drew us near to your great name, that we might acknowledge you, declaring you one in love. Praise be you, Adonai, who chooses your people Israel in love. Baruch ata Adonai, habocher ba'amo Yisrael ba'ahava.
Shema Yisrael, Adonai Eloheinu, Adonai Echad. Baruch Shem Kevod Malchuto Leolam Vaed.
You may be seated as we continue chanting on page 116. ואהבת את אדוני אלוהיך בכל לבבך ובכל נפשך ובכל מאודיך, והיו הדברים האלה אשר אנוכי מצווך היום על לבבך, ושיננתם לבניך, ודיברת בהם בשבתך בביתך, ובלכתך בדרך, ובשוכבך ובקומך, וקשרתם לאות על ידך, והיו לטוטפות בין עיניך, וכתבתם על מזוזות ביתך ובשעריך, למען תזכרו ועשיתם את כל מצוותי, והייתם קדושים לאלוהיכם. אני אדוני אלוהיכם, אשר הוצאתי אתכם מארץ מצרים, להיות לכם לאלוהים. אני אדוני אלוהיכם. Emet. On page 121, we read responsively. The eternal truth is that you alone are God, and there is none else.
May the righteous of all nations rejoice in your love and exult in your justice.
Let them beat their swords into plowshares and their spears into pruning hooks.
Let nation not lift up sword against nation, nor learn war anymore.
You shall not hate your brother or your sister in your heart.
The stranger that sojourns with you shall be accepted as your equal, for you were strangers in the land of Egypt.
Why do you crush my people and oppress the poor, asks God.
We know that the Eternal One defends the poor and upholds the rights of the needy.
Praise to God Most High.
Blessed is God and deserving of blessing.
Mi chamocha bailim Adonai, mi kamocha nedabar kodesh. Nora tehilot osefele, nora tehilot osefele. Shir hachacha, shibchu geolim l'shimcha al sfat hayam. Yachad kulam vehoduhu, ve'imlichu, ve'ameru. Adonai imloch, Adonai imloch, le'olam ba'ed. Tzur Yisrael, kuma bi'ezrat Yisrael, ufedechenu mecha, Yehuda ve'Yisrael. Go aleinu, Adonai tzvaot shemo, Kidos Yisrael. Baruch atah Adonai, Gal Yisrael.
We rise for the Amidah, which begins on page 124.
Yalalai, lai, lai, 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 yalalai, lai, lai. Adonai sifatai tiftach, Ufi yagi teilatecha. Adonai, open up my lips, that my mouth may declare your praise. Yalalai, lai, lai, yalalai, lai, lai, yalalai, lai, lai, yalalai, lai, lai. Ya la 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 la, ya la 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 la, Ya lai 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 lai, ya lai 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 lai.
Baruch atah Adonai, Eloheinu v'Elohei avotenu v'imotenu, Elohei Avraham, Elohei Yitzchak, v'Elohei Yaakov, Elohei Sarah, Elohei Rivka, Elohei Rachel, v'Elohei Leah, Ha'el Hagadol, Hagibor v'Hanorah, El Elyon, Gomer chasadim tovim, vekonei hakol, vezocher chastei havot v'imahot, umevi gula lifnei v'neihem, למען שמו באהבה, מלך עוזר ומושיע ומגן, ברוך אתה אדוני, מגן אברהם ועזרת שרה. אתה גיבור לעולם אדוני, מחיה הכל את הרב להושיע, מוריד הטל, מכלכל חיים בחסד, מחיה הכל ברחמים רבים, סומך נופלים ורופא חולים, ומתיר אסורים, ומקיים אמונתו לשני עפר, מי כמוך בעל גבורות, ומידו מלך, מלך ממית ומחיה, ומצמיח ישועה, ונאמן אתה להחיות הכל. ברוך אתה אדוני, מחיה הכל.
נקדש את שמך בעולם, כי שם שמקדישים אותו בשמי מרום, ככתוב על יד נביאך, וקרא זה אל זה ואמר, קדוש, 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 אדוני צבאות, מלוך כל הארץ, כבודו. אדיר אדירנו אדוני, אדוננו מאדיר שמך בכל הארץ. ברוך כבוד אדוני ממקומו. אחד הוא אלוהינו, הוא אבינו מלכנו, הוא מושיענו והוא ישמיענו, ברחמיו לעיני כל חי. אני אדוני אלוהיכם, ימלוך אדוני לעולם, אלוהי ציון, לדור ודור. הללויה. לדור ודור נגיד גודלך, ולנצח נצחים קדושתך נקדיש. ושבחך אלוהינו מפינו לא ימוש לעולם ועד. ברוך אתה אדוני האל הקדוש.
You may be seated. We continue on page 132 as we rejoice in this 24 hours that we have received by singing Yismechu.
ישמחו במלכותך, שומרי 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 שבת, וקוראי עונג שבת. ישמחו במלכותך, שומרי 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 שבת, וקוראי עונג שבת. מקדשי שבי שבת, כולה ישבעו ויתענגו מטובך שבת. ישמחו במלכותך, שומרי 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 שבת, וקוראי עונג שבת. ישמחו במלכותך, שומרי 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 שבת, וקוראי עונג שבת. ובשביעי רצית בו וקידשתו שבת. חמדת ימים אותו קראת שבת. ישמחו במלכותך, שומרי 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 שבת, וקוראי עונג שבת. ישמחו במלכותך, שומרי 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 שבת, וקוראי עונג שבת. זכר למעשה בראשית שבת. זכר למעשה בראשית שבת. ישמחו במלכותך, שומרי 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 שבת, וקוראי עונג שבת. ישמחו במלכותך, שומרי 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 שבת, וקוראי עונג שבת.
On page 135, we read responsively. Where has this week vanished? Is it lost forever? Will I recover anything from it? The joy of life, the unexpected victory, the realized hope, the task accomplished? Will I ever be able to banish the memory of pain, the sting of defeat, the heaviness of boredom? On this day, let me keep for a while what must drift away. On this day, let me be free of the burdens that must return. On this day, Shabbat, abide.
Help me to withdraw for a while from the flight of time, contain the retreat of the hours and days from the grasp of frantic life.
Let me learn to pause, if only for this day. Let me find peace on this day. Let me enter into a quiet world this day. On this day, Shabbat, abide. Baruch atah Adonai, mekadesh ha-Shabbat. Find favor, Adonai our God, with your people Israel, and accept their prayer and love. May the worship of your people Israel always be acceptable. God, who is near to all who call, turn lovingly to your servants. Pour out your spirit upon us. Let our eyes behold your loving return to Zion. Blessed are you, Adonai, whose presence returns to Zion. Baruch atah Adonai, hamachazir shechinato l'Tzion. On page 138, we read together. We acknowledge with thanks that you are Adonai our God and the God of our ancestors forever. You are the rock of our lives and the shield of our salvation in every generation. Let us thank you and praise you for our lives which are in your hand, for our souls which are in your care, for your miracles that we experience every day, and for your wondrous deeds and favors at every time of day, evening, morning, and noon. O good one, whose mercies never end, O compassionate one, whose kindness never fails, we forever put our hope in you. For all these things, O sovereign, let your name be forever praised and blessed. O God, our Redeemer and Helper, let all who live affirm you and praise your name in truth. Blessed are you, Adonai. Your name is goodness, and you are worthy of thanksgiving. Baruch atah Adonai, hatov shimcha lecha na'eh lehodot.
Sim, 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 shalom, sim, 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 shalom, sim, 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 shalom, tova uveracha. Sim, 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 shalom, sim, 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 shalom, sim, 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 shalom, tova uveracha. Yai lai 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 yai lai yai. Yai lai 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 yai lai lai. Yai lai 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 yai lai lai. Yai lai lai yai lai 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 lai. Sim, 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 shalom, sim, 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 shalom, sim, 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 shalom, tova uveracha.
We take a moment now for our own silent prayers.
Use shalom imromav, hu yaseh shalom. Aleinu ve'al kol Yisrael, ve'yimeru. Amen. Use shalom imramav, hu yaseh shalom. Aleinu ve'al kol Yisrael, ve'yimeru. Amen.
Seder Kriyat Torah, service for the reading of Torah, page 245. Assemble the people, men, women, and children, and the strangers in your cities to hear, to learn, to revere Adonai your God, to observe faithfully the words of this Torah. And let their children who do not yet know it hear, that they too may learn to revere Adonai your God. We rise in honor of the Torah.
Ein kamocha Elohim Adonai, ve'ein kema'asecha. Malchutcha malchut kol olamim, umemshaltecha bechol dor v'ador. Adonai melech, Adonai malach, Adonai imloch leolam va'ed. Adonai oz le'amo yiten, Adonai yivarech et amo v'shalom.
On the bottom of page 247, we read responsively. In this scroll is the secret of our people's life from Sinai until now.
Its teaching is love and justice, goodness and hope. Freedom is its gift to all who treasure it.
Shema Yisrael, Adonai Eloheinu, Adonai Echad. Echad Eloheinu, Gadol Adonenu, Kadosh Shemo. Gadlu Adonai iti, uneromema Shemo yachdav. Lecha Adonai hagedula v'hagevura v'hatiferet v'hanetzach v'hahod ki chol v'shamayim uvaretz ki chol v'shamayim uvaretz Adonai amamlacha ve'amid na'aseh lechol erosh. Al shlosha devarim, al shlosha devarim, al shlosha devarim, ha'olam omed. Al shlosha devarim, al shlosha devarim, al shlosha devarim, ha'olam omed. Al haTorah v'al havodah v'al gemilut chasadim. Al haTorah v'al havodah v'al gemilut chasadim.
All right. Parashat Naso. You're good. So as Rabbi Yergin mentioned last night, this is the longest Torah portion in all of Torah. Rabbi Yergin, I don't think I knew that, so thank you for that nice little bit of Torah trivia. That's good, some good Torah trivia. I appreciate it. I shared a Torah study this morning too. I thought it was cool. As Rabbi Yergin mentioned, as I mentioned earlier this morning, there are a few main parts of this Torah portion. I didn't mention this morning, continuation of the census from the previous parsha, a focus on an test to determine whether a wife has been unfaithful. The service of the Nazarite, of an individual, man or woman, who sets themselves apart for a period of time to be holier to God. And then, of course, the most beloved part of this Torah portion, which is the priestly benediction. So I wanted to focus on the priestly benediction this morning, not the benediction itself, because we have talked about that many times, and we'll talk about it more again, but to focus on the instructions for offering the blessing. Actually, if you want to read about the blessing, you can read in my weekly Devar Torah. I did a little thing on that on the Thursday weekly Devar Torah. But we're going to focus on the opening lines of this section that tell us what we're supposed to do, or what Aaron was supposed to do and how he was supposed to do it. For those who love Hebrew, I will note that the third line of the priestly benediction in the Hebrew here is messed up. Microsoft does not like to let us play with Hebrew. And
The last two ones.
The last two lines.
Yep, where there's that little vertical line, that should be at the beginning of the verse on both of those lines.
So, okay. So I thought I checked it, and clearly I did not.
It's more important for when I'm reading Torah later, so it's not confusing.
I just want to acknowledge. Acknowledge. Okay, so we're going to focus on this section of Torah. It should be very familiar to you, but we'll look at it in a little bit of a different way. So let's start by reading our text from chapter 6 of Numbers, verses 22 to 27. Take it away, Terry.
This is where Adonai spoke to Moses, "Speak to Aaron and his sons. Thus shall you bless the people of Israel. Say to them, Adonai bless you and protect you. Adonai deal kindly and graciously with you. Adonai bestow his favor upon you and grant you peace. Thus they shall link my name with the children of Israel, and I will bless them.
It's great. Super powerful. And we're just, like I said, focus on those first two verses, which we often just kind of skip over because we like to get to the meat of the blessing itself. So verses 22, 23, then Adonai spoke to Moses, saying, speak to Aaron and to his sons, saying, thus shall you bless the children of Israel and say to them, ... So the Talmud from Tractate Sota parses out this section to say, what is it telling us that is supposed to happen? Okay? All right, Kyle, take it away.
Thus shall you bless. Perhaps any tongue is permitted? Not so, for it says, ko, thus, in the holy tongue, with these words, thus shall you bless. Perhaps standing or sitting? But not so, for it is written, so they shall stand to bless the people. Just as there standing, so too here and always standing. Thus shall you bless. Perhaps without hands raised is permitted? This is not so, for it is written, and Aaron lifted his hands to the people and blessed them. Just as there with hands raised, so always with hands raised. Thus shall you bless. Perhaps it is intended to face the other way, but not so, for it is written, say to them, that is face to face, as a man speaks to neighbor.
So this is really Talmud at its best, which is it takes this one little phrase, thus shall you bless, goes to all these other places in the Hebrew Bible to find other instances of blessing, to create rules of how we offer the priestly benediction, right? Which is standing, hands raised, Hebrew, right? Face to face, which is how we give the Birkat Kohanim. Maybe you've been here for a bar bat mitzvah, or you've been to a wedding, or any of the other times that we do it, but we stand in front of the open ark with the people being blessed, facing the people who are doing the blessing, hands raised, right? Above them. It's because the Talmud told us to. Okay, but we can, if you've watched it or experienced it, there is quite a lot of power and drama in this very ancient choreography. I like to call it dramaturgy. I didn't make it up. Sorry. No, that's not what dramaturgy, the drama of liturgy. I did not make that up, but it's great, right? There is a lot of choreography that can go into building a worship service or a specific prayer moment that imbues it with amazing power, especially if it is consistent in the way that you do it. Okay, so now the question is, who gets to do the blessing? Andrew's doing, okay, Steve Robbins, please.
The blessing could only be given in the three-part formula so that the force, purpose, and meaning would remain unchanged. The force of ko in this manner establishes a limitation on the priest. The fixed pattern also ensured the effect of the blessing did not depend on the unique talents of any individual. The obligation to bless was set upon all priests so that the power to bless was not invested in any individual priest, and in fact had to be authorized by the children of Israel who commissioned the priests, by their request to serve as the connection between them and the Shekinah.
Right, so this is not the priest's, even though it is called the priestly benediction, right? This is not the priest's blessing. This is God's blessing, right? And it has to be said just this way, which is to say, some people are better at blessing on the spot, some people are worse on blessing on the spot, some people are amazing liturgists, some people not so much. Doesn't matter. This prayer stands, this blessing, exactly the way it is from Torah time to now. Anyone can learn it, anyone can say it, and it doesn't have to be just the one high priest at the time of Torah, right? It's for all generations. The person who is appointed by the people is the one who gets to offer the blessing. So very specific and in some ways very democratic, right? Okay, now we go back to more traditional commentaries. Akedat Yitzchak wants to remind us that who's responsible or who has the opportunity to bless. Arwen.
Akedat Yitzchak. What purpose is served by the fact that this precept enjoins that the benediction should proceed from the priest to the people? Surely it is God on high who blesses. is it up to them in some way assist?
Right, so why is this called the priestly benediction, right? Why are the priests given this authority to offer such a powerful blessing? As Rabbi Jurgen noted, I noted as well, this is only one of 2 blessings, actual blessings in Torah. The other one is, my father was a wandering Aramean, which is in Deuteronomy, and that's like the crux of the Passover Haggadah. So this is a very unique moment. Not only does God say, bless the people, which happens before, and I mean in other places, but here is the actual script, right? Which is why the commentators are saying, if the script was given, who are you to change the words? They have to stay this way. At least in the Hebrew, I'm going to say in my own defense, because I mess with the words all the time, as does Rabbi Stahl. Rabbi Stahl goes to town, right? But like Hebrew, always the same, but then an interpretation of the English to sort of bring it into the moment, right? But you're not supposed to mess with the Hebrew. Okay, and Ralph, if you'll read the Sifra for us.
Sifrei, say to them, why does the Torah add this phrase? Is it not obvious that Aaron and his sons are to offer the blessings for Israel? Rather, it is to teach that the blessings must be recited in a manner which is to them, so that they are able to hear the blessings.
Okay, so I want to go back to the Talmud, which reminds us that we have to say this out loud, standing up, facing the person, right? So on one hand, this blessing has a lot of power. On the other hand, it is not a private, secret, magical formula that happens in the Holy of Holies, so to speak. It is something that happens in public, right? And it's not just the high priest who gets to do it, it's any priest, or at this moment, and according to Jewish tradition, anybody, right? Parents bless their children with the Birkat Kohanim on Friday nights. And it's a thing that other people, it's a reciprocal blessing. You know, if God does X, then Y will happen, right? So it's not it's not supposed to be an abstract kind of thing. So the power of the blessing, I believe, is as much in the words of the blessing itself as it is in the way that the blessing is set up throughout tradition to be one that is not hidden away, but is very clearly a public, not just an affirmation of God's blessing in the world, but in concrete ways that we can also take those blessings and go out there and make the world more holy too. All of us have the chance to receive the blessing, and all of us have the opportunity to give the blessing as well. And so now, Rabbi Jurgen is going to offer the blessing to all of us by, I'll do it now, with that, by chanting this section of text, which is not written properly here, and so for that I do apologize. But you can join me in the Torah blessings, which are on page 250. Okay, join with me. Baruch hu et Adonai Hamvarach, Baruch Adonai Hamvarach le'olam va'ed, Baruch Adonai Hamvarach le'olam va'ed, Baruch ata Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam, asher bachar banu michol ha'amim, v'natan lanu et Torato, Baruch ata Adonai noten ha'torah.
Amen. V'daber Adonai el Moshe lemor. Daber Aaron ve'al banav lemor. Kol tivrachu el bnei Yisrael amor lahem. V'yivarecha Adonai v'yishmerecha. Ya'er Adonai panav elecha v'yichuneka. Isa Adonai panav elecha v'yasem lecha shalom v'shamu et shmi al bnei Yisrael v'ani avarchem.
Baruch ata Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam, asher natan lanu Torah emet, v'chayei olam nata b'tochenu. Baruch ata Adonai noten haTorah. In the presence of Torah, we offer prayers for those who face the future not fully whole. Mishaberach Avotenu, Avraham Yitzchak v'Yaakov v'Imotenu Sorar V'Galei Avrahel. May the one who blessed our ancestors before us bring strength to all those who struggle against sickness, and wholeness to all those who long to be healed. At this moment, if there's someone in your life, someone you hold in your heart, someone on your mind in need of healing, I invite you to picture them, to think about them, close your eyes if you wish, and whisper their names out loud. And so we sing our prayer for healing, Mishaberach, on page 253. 253.
Mishaberach Avotenu, Avraham, Yitzchak v'Yaakov. Mishaberach Imotenu, Sarari Charei Averachel. May the one who blessed our mothers, may the one who blessed our fathers, hear our prayer, hear our prayer, hear our prayer, hear our prayer, and bless us as well. Bless us with the power of your healing. Bless us with the power of your hope. May our hearts be filled with understanding and strengthened by the power of your love. Bless us with the vision for tomorrow. Help us to reach out to those in pain. May the warmth of friendship ease our sorrow. Give us courage, give us faith, show us the way. Mishaberach Avotenu, Mishaberach Imotenu. Hear our prayer, hear our prayer, hear our prayer, hear our prayer, and bless us as well.
Amen. We turn to page 252 as we rise in honor of the Torah.
V'zot haTorah asher sa Moshe lifnei bnei Yisrael al pi Adonai biyad Moshe. V'zot haTorah asher sa Moshe lifnei bnei Yisrael al pi Adonai biyad Moshe. Yada dai 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 dai, yada dai 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 dai, yada dai 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 dai, yada dai dai, yada dai dai, yada dai dai, yada yada.
Page 256.
Eitz Chaim hi lemachazikim ba v'tocheha meushar derachea darchei noam v'chol netivotea shalom hashivenu Adonai, elechav nashuva, chadesh amenu, kikedem.
We continue with Aleinu, page 283.
Aleinu l'shabeach l'adon hakol, לתת גדולה ליוצא בראשית, שהוא שם חלקנו לייחד את שמו, וגור עלינו להמליך מלכותו, ואנחנו קוראים ומשתחווים ומודים לפני מלך מלכי המלכים הקדוש ברוך הוא. ונאמר והיה אדוני למלך על כל הארץ ביום ההוא, ביום ההוא יהיה אדוני אחד, ושמו אחד.
You may be seated. Page 289 for our memorial meditation. In nature's ebb and flow, God's eternal law abides. When tears dim our vision or grief clouds our understanding, we often lose sight of God's eternal plan. Yet we know that growth and decay, life and death all reveal a divine purpose. God, who is our support in the struggles of life, is also our hope in death. We have set God before us and shall not despair. In God's hands are the souls of all the living and the spirits of all flesh. Under God's protection we abide, and by God's love are we comforted. O life of our life, soul of our soul, cause your light to shine into our hearts and fill our spirits with abiding trust in you. Our thoughts turn now to those in our community and extended community who have died at this time in years past. As we mark their yahrzeits, we remember them. Carol Abel, Norman G. Allen, Juliet Art, A. Melvin August Jr., Barbara F. Baum, Jack Burgovoy, Larry Berkman, Dolores Birkin, Fanny Blum, Violet Braun, James Dick, Dr. Stephen Elbine, Sarah Feller, Wilma Fisher, Jay Ginsberg, Abe Gittleson, Harry Ralph Goldman, Joshua Granofsky, Muriel Green, Boris Grinman, Ruth Jean Gerwitz, Edith Harris, Eskar Hockman, Stanley Jack Hoffman, Jacob Carfield, Harold Kelfer, Beatrice Kerman, Barbara Kaiser, Becky Feinsilver Krasnow, Rose Francis Cronish, Irving Latt, Miriam Elaine Leff, Max Levin, Joyce Novich Lyons, Nieves Madrid Avila, Madge Mullen, Gloria Opatowski, Evelyn Oppenheimer, Robert Osason, Joe Porterfield, Neil Porterfield, Chaya Rabinovich, Consuela G. Rodriguez, Ida Milgram Rosenman, Edgar Sanditon, Phyllis Schoner, Harry Stahl, Evelyn Stein, Joanne Stockstiel, Florence Rono Strelke, Morris Strum, Benjamin Sheriff, Harvey Tamon, Dr. Arthur Skip Urbach, Doris Aline Paris Vitali, Eugene Leslie Wayne, Amnon Weidenfeld, Rosa Wolf, Harry A. Wood Jr., and Hazel Wolf. We also think of those who've been buried in the past 30 days, whose families are in a mourning period of Shloshim. We remember Michael Powerstein, Alvin Weiss, Paul Harold Friedman, Marshall Seidman, Nathan Schlenker, Christopher George, James Fenstermacher, David Strauss. We also think of those who were buried this past week, whose families are in a mourning period of Shiva. Remember Miriam Grossman, mother of Joni and Saul Schwartz, Marty Raba, Jack Hyman, and Tony Kotka. Grandmother of Scott and Jennifer Alpert, Lee and Roberta Schwartz, Lainey and Randy Davis. Great-grandmother of Nick, Colby, Alexa, and Paige Davis. Rena, Kayla, and Alex Schwartz. Cade and Callie Alpert, and Andrew Phipps. We also think of Jeannie Ann Rudd, wife of Harvey, mother of Rochelle Abelow, Russell and Dianara Rudd, and Jason Rudd, grandmother of Julia, Samantha, and Maya Abelow, sister of Sadhana Singh. With all of these names, we add those which are in our hearts each and every day as we rise together as one community for Kaddish Yatom on page 294. Yitzgadal v'yitzkadash shemei Rabbah, be'alma divrach hirutei v'yamlich malchutei, b'chayachon u'v'yomechon u'v'chayei d'chol beit Yisrael, ba'agala u'v'zman kariv v'imru, amen. Yehei shmei Rabbah mevarach le'olam u'mei almaya, yitzbarach v'yishtabach v'yitzpa'ar v'yitromam v'yitnaseh, v'yitadar v'yitaleh v'yithalal shemei d'kudesha b'richu. Le'ela min kol berchata v'shirata, tushbechata v'nechamata, da'amiran be'alma v'imru, amen. Yehei shlama rabba min shemaya, v'chaim aleinu v'al kol Yisrael v'imru, amen. Oseh shalom b'imromav, u'ya'aseh shalom, aleinu v'al kol Yisrael v'imru, amen. May the one who creates harmony on high bring peace to us and to all Israel, to which we say, amen.
Our closing song is In Kelohinu, which is on page
322.
322. Please join us after our closing song and the stall gallery for Kiddush and motzi and some light refreshments.
Ein Kelohenu, Ein Kadonenu, Ein Kemalkenu, Ein Kemoshienu, Micheloenu, Michadonenu, Michemalkenu, Michemoshienu, Nodel Eloheinu, Nodel Adonenu, Nodel Malkeinu, Nodel Moshienu, Baruch Eloheinu, Baruch Adonenu, Baruch Malkeinu, Baruch Moshienu, Atahu Eloheinu, Atahu Adonenu, Atahu Malkeinu, Atahu Moshienu.
Shabbat Shalom, and special thanks to Jack Leifert, our guest cantorial soloist. Thank you for leading us so beautifully. Shabbat Shalom.